They can interrupt me. I don't care. If you can set it up quick, that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm ready.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for coming. I wanted to introduce Dr. Susan Elwood. She's going to be giving a presentation today. This lecture series is hosted in collaboration with the Center for Faculty Excellence and the Elite Graduate Program. Dr. Elwood received her doctorate degree in Educational and Instructional Technology from Texas A&M University, and she's been teaching here at the university educational technology since 2002. And she was one of my professors. I graduated from the Educational Technology Master's Program. Her areas of interest include technology integration with K-12 environments, digital social networks, portable computing environments, project-based service learning, and also electronic portfolios. Dr. Elwood is also one of our first recipients of our Elite Graduate Program Travels Program funding program. And she submitted a proposal, and we awarded her supplemental funding to go to San Diego, California to attend the SITE conference, which is the Society for Information Technology and Education conference in San Diego. And she's going to be talking today about pedagogical trends for technology, which is pretty much just a reflection of what she learned at the conference. So please help me welcome Dr. Susan Elwood.
What I'm doing today, I helped give them that idea of having people give presentations. That was my idea. Being videotaped and put over the internet was not my idea, but that's okay. And what I want to show today is also a model for other faculty or students who go off to conferences. I find it important in K-12 and K-16 environments that we come back and share what we've seen, what we've learned. And so what I'm modeling is I've taken some excerpts from some key notes, key speeches that I saw, key people I saw, key theories that came out of the conference. Because of their funding, I'm very, very grateful for that funding, I was able to attend all 5 days of the conference. And so I have more notes than I can possibly share in the time I'm going to share them. But I wanted to synopsize some key themes that I saw coming out, especially for our environment with higher ed. And I was just speaking with a couple people before saying adult learning and K-12 learning is starting to blend even more, mostly because our technologies are blending. And we'll look at a couple theories here that show that. There might be some key terms and key phrases people like to delve into later and find some more deep web research on it, maybe even Google some surface web and find out what MIT and those other people are doing. So let me present a little bit of some of the shared notes. And I gave a digital storytelling workshop or roundtable at the conference, and also upon the request, I have some laptops up here. If you have, I saw an iPad over there. If you have your laptop with you, when we get to the portion of the workshop or brown bag, whatever we're calling this, where there's more participatory, I want to get you into VoiceThread. Anybody use it? My students? Okay. Would like to get you into that, or if you've been into VoiceThread and you want to go look at some more of the links that I'm quickly presenting at the front part here, or some of the theories I'm quickly presenting at the front part, then you can have time to do that as well, and we'll share. So that's what we're doing here for the next hour, is playing with those two things. And what I'm using here is Google Docs. How many of you use that? All right, a little bit more out there. And Google Docs is, for those of you that aren't sure, this is basically something like Microsoft Office. I'd rather say Open Office, but something like Microsoft Office, where there's basic integrated applications. You're going to be seeing the word processing feature of it, as well as a PowerPoint type feature, the presentation feature. So great for collaborative learning. You can invite whoever you want in. I have a folder, and I've opened the link up to anyone with the link. And I've given it, Julie doesn't know this, but I've given it to Julie and Lisa just about 10 minutes before I came over here. So they can have the link and post it wherever they're posting everything else, so that you can take a look at these resources later. I've also used it just so that you can view it, but just so you know, when you design your own Google Doc, you can allow anyone with the link to view and edit, or if you want to invite people in as collaborators, as editors, they can co-edit with you and have more options, use more features. I like to explain the tools I use once in a while. Also, it goes along with the theories we're looking at about collaborative global learning. Before I get started into the informal learning, one thing I didn't put up in here was just the overall theme of what I saw from SITE, Society for Information Technology and Teacher Education. This also includes people from K-12 environments, but it includes people from higher ed, people from corporate businesses. And so as we look at learning environments, we need to start thinking learning environments and not isolate so much by age level. And two themes that I saw coming out that I said, yes, finally, because I've been pushing these themes for years. And it was interesting. We had one panel on the last day where we had MIT, Harvard, a couple of major corporations on this panel. And in the audience, it was the last day of the conference, yes, there was a little bit of slow attendance drizzling in, but they did a quick poll. We had the clickers. They did a quick poll to figure out who the demographics are in their audience. Half of us were K-12 educators, or dealt with K-12, people like me dealing with professional ed. Half of us were adult educators. Half of us were from the U.S., half were from all over the world. The first half I spoke, I meant to say half from the U.S., half from all over the world. Most of us were adult learning educators because most of us are college professors that attend that. You will have some of the K-12 educators as they bring their student groups when they have student showcases. And the last day was still more K-12 educators because that day was focused for that. When this panel started presenting, they used their clickers, got the demographics out of the way, and then they started to ask questions. How many of you have used inquiry-based learning? I don't have clickers, but I'm going to use your hands. How many of you have used inquiry-based learning in your learning environments? How many of you know what inquiry-based learning is? You're pretty confident on. There we go, let's start there. I did not put that in here, but if you want to look into essential questions, you want to Google that, you'll find a lot about essential questions. You look into inquiry-based learning. Inquiry-based learning says we don't start from the bottom. We don't say, what's a volcano? No. We start from the top. And we say something like, now I gotta stick myself with the question. How do, what do you call like volcanoes and tsunamis, earthquakes? How do geographical, or help me out here guys. How do natural events, how do natural phenomena, how do natural events affect the world? Could be an overall essential question. Because within that, I can get into volcanoes, I can get into tectonic plate shifting with earthquakes, and that can go into some unit questions, or if I'm a K-12, I might gear it more for social studies versus science, I could do it that way, or I could gear it more into the volcanoes versus the earthquakes, and then it come down to the unit content questions, where it's how is an earthquake formed? And if I know it, I don't know, but if I know it, I can list it out in so many steps. That's a content question. So you look at essential unit content questions, you look at inquiry-based learning. So that's the question, and those of us in the field would be better knowing. And so when they asked that question, yes, a lot of clickers went up, not hands, a lot of clickers went up, great response. How many of you use project-based learning? I won't go into a whole review of that, that's longer. How many of you use project-based learning? Okay. Look it up if you want to know more about it. There's too much there to look up pbl.org. That's a really nice site to start with. That's where you do real-life projects, and you use that inquiry-based learning within it, make it more meaningful, real-life, service-oriented, also service-based learning, so you've heard about that. So they were asking more delineated questions. They had about 5 questions on project-based, service-based, community service-centered, and people were doing pretty good with that. And then they started asking, the next one is a very simple one to open it up to the global. They said, how many of you have used Skype in the past, or some kind of video, in the past year, and had someone from some other country come in and collaborate with you or work with your students in a project? What do you think the response was?
Yeah.
Very little. And it kind of stayed at that very little rate for other questions they asked. They were asking how many of us were using the global interaction capabilities, not for the point of this. Yes, I have a Google Doc here, but I'm sharing it pretty much with this audience and whoever else will show up on that website. I'm basically emailing you a Word document. If I were truly using this as a collaborative thing, I would have some international voices in here, or at least voices from across town, different schools, something, where they're collaborating over distance, space, and time because we can. I don't have to see your face. I don't have to talk to you at the same time. So they started asking questions along this line. We have all these tools available, but people still aren't conceptualizing how to use it. And I sat there and it was fun to watch. I watched MIT and Harvard and these people, literally their jaws were dropping. as I kept asking these questions and we maintained out here. I'm in the back thinking, yes, because I'm so tired of being in South Central Texas and saying, we are so behind in technology. Okay, I could say yes, I could agree with some of that, and part of me just wants to say, and so what are you doing about it? Because we all have equal opportunity. I remember having a student sitting in class saying, I went home after 7 years. There are people living in cardboard boxes, but because, or smaller shanties, but because of the grants coming out, with the mobile technologies here, they have the latest, greatest cell phone with service. All right, so you take that little child in some third world country who's got some amazing God-gifted abilities, and then you take that child and you give them technology, and you equalize the playing field. Where are our first world countries going? What are we doing? What are those with the privilege who don't have the appreciation and the drive to go and enter into this world and really explode it? What's happening? So it's an interesting social dynamic that's going on. So out of all that, that's vegan and what I wanted to present, but I really wanted to force these 2 points home. The 2 points that I saw is pervasive throughout the conference, and it was culminated in that final presentation when I watched MIT and Harvard, their jaws just dropped. Because in their worlds, they have lots of money, they have lots of talented resources, and in their communities, they do great things. And they weren't understanding how the rest of the world, as Society for Information and Technology teacher, educator, conference attendees, who this is their life, they weren't understanding, why aren't we out more? Why aren't we using our global interaction more? So the key themes that came out were when we teach now, when we design learning environments now, there were 2 main things that I saw coming out, and one speaker even said it. It says, when we design now, we need to design with global interaction. You design expecting global interaction, and you promote it. Thank you. I was lost to that. I've been saying it for a long time here. The other thing was to design for and with social causes. Because a couple of the conference presentations told us, and I don't know what gen we're in. You know how there's Gen X, Gen Y, Gen whatever. I don't even know what we're up to now, whatever we call the next gen. And what is the next gen? The teenagers? I don't know. But they're saying basically, those that are coming up now, they're expecting to use all this global technology, Facebook, whatever, and they're expecting to have it go towards social cause, greater world good. Because if you don't, it's not meaningful to them. And some people are saying, I'd like to see that, because I still have the students who say, what if, I want to do the minimum to get the A. Maybe we're not tapping into where we need to tap into, where we need to drive, where we need to see the focus on. So global interaction towards a social cause. That's where we need to be. That necessitates cloud computing, Web 2.0, now you're doing Web 3.0. Web 1 was, I sit and I research the internet and I read a page. Someone else, if you know how to do FTP, yes, you can control that. But Web 2 came out and said, I don't need to know how to do HTML. I just need to know how to do something equivalent to Word, which everybody can do pretty much. And I can blog, I can wiki, I can do all sorts of cool things, like voice registry today. Just sign up, within 2 minutes, you're in. And so now it's a matter of, everybody's an author, but what do we do with it? How do you make it productive? Okay, so, informal learning was one concept that came out. And that concept's researched in adult ed environments, not so much in K-12. That's why I'm pushing it here, because sometimes people challenge me, but what about the adults? It's learning of the 21st century. Alan Tuff set up the paradigm in different aspects. What we have to have as teachers and faculty to move into and away from faculty development workshops. I feel like I'm standing and preaching anyway. That's not congruent with what we're supposed to be doing. And moving into a transition into lifelong learning. And just a little side note, it's not so much for grads. Most of my undergrads will also say, I want things step by step. And I've fought that for years, and now I have support. Because I say, you go and you look at Voicer, you look at Google Docs, you look at all these applications. Do they teach you step by step? Not really. They say, here's the tour, sign up, go play. So there's a lot of experiential, exploratory learning. Lifelong. I have to have the hunger. I have to have the drive, the curiosity. So what is informal learning? And I've got a couple of movies here. They're about 10 minutes long. I'm only going to show the first 1.5 minutes to give you an idea of what is informal learning, and you don't have to listen to it.
Every January, several hundred learning and design professionals gather in London for the Learning Technologies Conference. This year, Donald Clark, Nigel Payne, and I led discussions about informal learning and Web 2.0. Here are a few outtakes from the conference. Raise your hand if you feel you're so busy that you don't have time to reflect on your experience. Woo! You're going to enjoy the last section of this, I can assure you. That was most of the people in the room.
Papers in psychology in the whole 20th century in 1998, showing that almost everything that had been published in parenting was hokum. All that stuff about, Freudian attachment theories and so on, that basically use parents, if you've got kids, have absolutely no effect on your child at all. By and large, 50% of it's genetic. The other 50% is mostly peer group. Send your kid to school. I have 2 kids. They don't have a Scottish accent, believe me. They were brought up in England. They have the accent of their peer group.
You give more credibility to your colleagues than to an instructor or somebody in authority who's trying to lay their message on you. Time is moving so fast that scientist and inventor Ray Kurzweil.
Okay, I'm going to close it there. It's a great movie. It's 10 minutes long. You mentioned Kurzweil. If you want to watch some out-of-your-mind type of view into the future, look at Ray Kurzweil and some of his views in the future that he posted 10, 20 years ago. You ever heard of the Kurzweil keyboard? If you know keyboards, it's one of the best keyboards on the market. It was a byproduct of his creative genius. He didn't go out designing keyboards, the man's just that intelligent. So they mentioned the Kurzweil. You notice how he mentioned that, and we've known that in K-12 forever, that a lot of times it's the peer collaboration that's more meaningful than hearing it from the authority. And so, especially in our Web 2 cloud environments, you have a lot of affordability to do that. So anyway, informal learning. A couple of great movies there. Great videos there to get an idea of what it is, and you also see the key names popping up so that you can dig into their research too. I want to give you time to play. So, theory and practice, this is a good resource dealing with informal learning. And so, the larger research institutes are trying to push this idea, and of course, there's the debate. What exactly is it? Is it valued? Is it here to stay? So I just wanted to, I'll read this out loud. Informal learning should no longer be regarded as an inferior form of learning, whose main purpose is to act as the precursor of formal learning. It needs to be seen as fundamental, necessary, valuable in its own right, at times directly relevant to employment, and at other times not relevant at all. Must move away from the view of education as a rite of passage involving the acquisition of enough knowledge and qualifications to acquire an adult station in life. I got my degree, I'm done. The point of education, and we've known that for years, right? The point of education should not be to inculcate a body of knowledge, but to develop capabilities. And I meant to close that up before you take a look at it. Because that point alone, one could argue we've done that. We've been purporting that. It's not just for knowledge, but it's to develop the capabilities, lifelong learning. We've been hearing about that for years. Now, they also go on to say the basic ones of literacy and numeracy, as well as the capability to act responsibly towards others, to take initiative and to work creatively and collaboratively. And the most important capability, one in which traditional education is worst at creating, is the ability and yearning to carry on learning. I like what they say here at the end. Too much schooling kills off the desire to learn. Schools and universities should become more like hubs of learning within the community, capable of extending into the community. We know that. More learning needs to be done at home, in offices and kitchens, in the context where knowledge is deployed to solve problems and add value to people's lives. There are a couple of things that come to mind when I read that, like capable of extending into the community. We do some great things. There's some great things in higher this extend the community, this university. There's some great things we do. More learning needs to be done at home, in offices and kitchens, in the context where knowledge is deployed to solve problems that add value to people's lives. With that statement, I'm a little leery when we look at distance ed. We look at the affordability of being able to study anytime, anywhere. And yes, it's important to be able to allow those single moms to go back and study at 2 in the morning when they have to, for one example. But sometimes I think we look at distance ed as we want to go online, and we're thinking in terms of that, what I want to call that, affordability of time management, rather than trying to extend into the homes. That means not just I extend to the home long enough for you to get your degree, like they mentioned earlier, but they're saying extend into the home to the point to where it becomes a part of you. It's lifelong learning. Like our generations that are growing up with technology, my children will never know what it's like to not live without a computer. My children will expect to be online talking to friends from all over the world. We are collaborating all the time. That's not lifelong learning. So we need to design environments that, with that in mind, and not so much as learning as the end. I know some of you are sitting here ready to debate with me. Go for it. I'm not describing it well enough, but we now have, we've been purporting these things for years. We all know we want lifelong learning. But now we can take it to the vast numbers of people, but our job is to figure out how to make those learning environments conducive to where they want to be engaged in more meaningful, global ways and social interaction ways for social causes. Okay. So a couple of good movies, little videos there if you want to see about informal learning and more resources for informal learning. I put in the partnership of 21st century skills development. Who's seen that? I'm going to throw this actually really quick. This is really pushed in K-12, but it's with a focus of how do we train kids? We've known this for generations too. How do we train kids for jobs that we don't even know what they're going to have? Except now it's even more exaggerated. I've seen ads about looking at kids training for 2010 to graduate from college, and they're coming out of 2004 stats saying there are so many jobs that we can't even train for college anymore for some of the jobs they'll have. MIT was standing up in the podium once saying, I just finished doing a master's degree with someone who, and she gave the title of what her new job is, and it was just something more about a facilitator of learning environments, focusing more on the collaboration facilitation. It was a title we'd never heard of, but it made sense. And she says, we never even knew the job existed, that type of job, and it's now becoming an industry. So in here, this is what we're trying to focus on in K-12, but it lost my graphic. On the right side.
Is it that blocker? That alert, that flash alert at the top?
Oh. Where's the blocker? Anyway, preparing them for, right over here, I want to get in there later and look. Preparing them for skills that adapt to change, even more so than we've ever had to do. And so it's focused on adaptability, it's focused on leadership. Things, when you read that, you'll think, wow, we've known that for years too. You know, but it's really trying to make a focus of learning environments that use social tools and create that focus where we are now the authors. Everybody is now an author of what they're doing, and that's social responsibility. Okay. This, I took excerpts from Christie's Teaching and Assessing of 21st Century Skills, and there's a lot you can read about 21st century skills. Some of the highlights he gave was about creativity, collaboration, sharing, sharing now, meaning social bookmarking, photo and video sharing, social networks, writers' workshops, thinking, using blogs, podcasts, online discussions, co-creating, and so you really become a facilitator in learning environments. Very much like Montessori, prepare the environment, and then let them find themselves within it. They contribute impact to the community. Gaming, we've known that for a few years, but it's really starting to become quite large. And I got too many different presentations on that I can summarize, but not for now. The National Educational Technology Plan, I won't pull it up because I want to do something else with time left here. But again, a great link to go in and look and see. So it just came out in 2010. A good link to go in and see what they're doing with that vision. Best practices came out of, I just clicked onto the best practices page for the National Education Technology Plan, so you could go there and see what's coming out, or how it's set up, and so you can go back and visit it occasionally too. BD was presenting about the disruptive innovation theory model, it's a book by a colleague, it's called Innovator's Dilemma, looking at evolutionary models, looking at sustaining innovations, and dealing with what he calls disruptive innovations, offering a new product. And so some theories that permeate not only in the educational environments, but permeate throughout society and culture, so that no matter what your major is, no matter what your study is. And a new phrase I hadn't heard before called sea change, looking at the evolution, transformation, disruption, because you bring in all these authors into the world, and these are what they're calling sea change. Something like, okay, let's take Facebook. A few years ago, maybe nobody heard of Facebook, right? Is it going to go away? It's a social network. It may change. The tools may change. They may start charging, and people will say, not that one, but I'll go to another one. You know, so that's a sea change. You're watching what's developing. I know my grandfather, back when the radio came, he once told me in his 80s, I had fun interviewing him, because he was my last grandparent, so I wanted to interview him and ask some questions. And I asked about technological innovations. I said, Grandpa, what do you think about all these technological innovations? This was 20 years ago. And Grandpa says, well, you know, something like the radio. I remember when it came out, I worked from Northeastern Iowa, and he says, I couldn't figure out for the life of me why in the world somebody wants to stand around or sit around and look at a radio and listen to someone from 3 hours away. I just thought it was a fad. We all thought it was a fad. It was going to go away. You know, and now look. And so a lot of these things people see coming, and they're hesitant to get into, but, you know, are you going to be in the, what do you call it, the sea change? Are you going to jump into the sea and try to navigate and figure it out and just accept that it's here? How do I contribute to it in meaningful ways? Twitter, anybody ever wondered what the world should do with Twitter? Right? When that first came out, I thought, okay, I'm all over Web 2 applications, I'm all in this, but Twitter, come on. I remember thinking, I could really care less if my friend went, I mean, I love my friend, but I could care less if they went to Starbucks and got a white chocolate mocha. I don't need to know this. But then when people started to compare it to, well, think about it. It's Twitter, tweeting. What tweets? Little creatures like birds. So you got the little chicks over here making a tweet sound. You got the geese over here making a honking sound. When you throw all these people into the sea change of something like Twitter, you get into commonalities. And so I had a Twitter account for a short time because that's just too much to keep up with for me. But I had a Twitter account, and I had a colleague who happened to be at a national convention, someone I just met, another ed tech colleague. She says, well, follow these people, 1, 2, 3, 4. So she hit me with 4 key people that I should follow because they're fellow ed techies who play on Twitter all the time, showing the latest, greatest tools, showing the latest, greatest theories, whatever. So I just subscribed to these 4 people. They fed into my Twitter account. Next thing I know, I had people following me, and I had only posted 1 or 2 posts. But it's that birds of a feather thing. So the sea change, how do you use it?
The Library of Congress now is archiving tweets. That's our nation's library. So interesting.
That is interesting, but you know, I can see the relevance of that because in my field where you have all of these people throwing in their raw creative ideas, I found when I had time to take a look at those links and everything, it was really worth it. But that kind of see where it can become a Wikipedia argument too. So, anybody heard of augmented reality? Pretty quick. Okay, you've heard of virtual worlds? I'm just having fun picking your brains now. But, virtual worlds are Second Life. I put nothing in here, but about that. Augmented reality, and they weren't talking so much about virtual worlds because these bigger gurus like we've done that, been there for the last couple of years. What's next? So they're looking at augmented reality. Neat idea. I'm not going to talk much about it. I'm going to show you a video because it's kind of fun to see this. And I'm skipping over a bunch of notes because I want to get going. These are some augmented reality notes that if you want to look through them later might make a little bit of sense, but mostly this one. Roku's reward. I didn't look this one up, so it's going to take a little bit. This gives a sample vignette of about a 10-year-old boy and how he's using augmented reality. When you watch this, I want you to observe what's going on, what you're seeing through his little, he has an iPod Touch type of device. And I want you to observe what's going on, and I want you to think about, so how could that be applied to my profession and my career? They usually take this long to come up. All right, back. I'm going to pause it. Bring it back. And that's it.
Do they have a piece somewhere in the picture itself? In the
Then we actually left first time, like I just did leave over things. There. I do it my way, I mean my way. Or iPod, oh, there's a target. Clicks on the target. What information am I receiving? Push point. And so that's when you had to make a decision. It's a game. Except I like it because they're running around. All of a sudden I have hope for gaining. My two kids will not have the strongest muscle being their thumbs, or their fingers. So they're up running around. People have put predisposed artifacts up for them to find, which can be socially created. So these are social developments of games. No longer is the gaming industry going to be Christina Garza, great programmer. Gonzalez, why did I say Garza? Christina Gonzalez, great programmer, puts in up her great game. and people buy it and play. It'll be more collaborative in nature. People are designing. So, given that you get to, and the girl, she was obviously a movie they created or something, right? That led them to go down the alley and take a right. So he did. Looking for more targets. Next piece of information, make a decision, what do I do with it? So, and in the end, they all ended up in one spot because they're looking for that. It's like geocaching, I think, in a way. They're looking for that one single reward. So that's augmented reality. You, with your computer, are now putting an augmented layering on top of real reality. Interesting, isn't it?
Are we gonna take money from them when they're 16, start driving?
No, it'll be here. Drive like this for 2 years and then I'll So what could we do with that in our professions? First of all, is that new to everybody? Anybody? Does that kind of blow people's minds when you think about applications for it? So how do you see that? What are we going to do with that? What would you do with that?
I'm an ecologist. I see a ton of applications for that in the field. Simulated field work.
What else? Think of your field.
Hazmat training.
Perfect.
Campus tour.
What?
Right. A tour of our campus instead of coming to orientation.
Right.
We just go to all the points.
Right. So I like seeing stuff like that, thinking, what are we going to do with it? And that was Chris Deedy from MIT. And so if you're interested in that, he was looking for playing partners. Because he told all of us, basically, it's like everything else. We designed it, now what do we do with it? So he's looking for playing partners of all levels, those that want to come in and help do the technicalities of design, down to those of us going, don't know how you created that, but boy does it look fun, I've got some ideas. And so look up augmented reality, Chris Deedy, MIT, if you want to have some ideas and want to be one of the playing partners. Okay, so that gives you some background as far as what were some major themes coming out of the conference. I'm going to do this. I'll share it. My proceedings file is up there. You can link on that later. Looking at, I'm trying to look into, well, summarize it really quick. You can look at it later. Trying to look into digital storytelling genres. We have different genres of storytelling, if you will, in the physical real world. Digital storytelling is kind of all over the place from what I've seen yet. I haven't seen a whole consolidated source. There's things like historical documentaries. Kids get to pretend with Ben Franklin or something like that. There's some narrative storytelling, which is the traditional one that we think of. Cowboy gathers around the campfire, tells a story, moral of the story is. But there's different genres to be had out there, and so I'm trying to study that. Not only genres, but also according to the affordances. Because in my 20-some years as an educator, I've been told in the past that, you're a good visionary, you'd like to see the forest view. I like to just do things like that, watch augmented reality and say, what can I do with that? Or look at something like Google Docs or new tools in the council. What can we do with that? Trying to find different ways of thinking of how to use them, and happen to find some people who were on the same wavelength. And that paper was called something about the affordances of VoiceThread. He actually used VoiceThread as well. And so I thought that's a great point to bring out. You look at the affordances of a model. Like when I used to show people an application, I say, click through the menus, look at the buttons, look at the options. What can we do with that stuff? What can we do with those options? Like insert comment. We're going to use that word, so that you can comment in Word or a lot of these word processing applications. Talk to people about what you're thinking without disrupting the flow of the writing. So you look at different affordances of the tool, and then think about pedagogical implications. That's what these researchers did. They had a table like that: affordances, pedagogical implications, which was neat for me to take a look at. But I thought, I can't present this to some of my classes, some of my educators. They won't make that leap into the next, where there needs to be a third column, and saying, what are some actual protocols, heuristics that we can design from that so that they can get up and get running with it. And I'm in the middle of that study right now, working with some teachers on more of a case study, and we're right in the middle of it, so we're doing a workshop on Saturday to come down to some of the protocols and heuristics that they're going to try out in the classroom with their third graders. So that, I'm not going to share with you yet what we've devised, because it's not devised, but that'll be coming up later in the future. What's neat about that is just the idea of that affordances model. What does my tool allow me to do? Just make a list of the technicalities of what the tool can do. What could I do with that in my learning environment? what kind of pedagogical implications of that design. And in the very least, if you start thinking that way, you'll expand the tools and the abilities. But also remember those two main points as you do that. When you design learning environments, what else are you supposed to be focusing on? In the beginning of the presentation, I told you there are two main points that came out of that conference. Make sure it's global interaction, you're enticing global interaction, and what else?
Social problems.
And towards social issues, social problems, yeah. Social causes. That's what social causes. Okay. And at the very least, just throw another tidbit. You're trying to say, oh great, okay, so let's go global. How do I do that? How do I find people to play with? How do you find people to play with? Other educators. Go where?
The educated playground.
It's in Second Life. You go to educator playground, find lots of people, sure. In the very least, I always tell my undergrads, elementary ed majors who have no time to integrate technology, expect to do technology, art, and everything else, because we just, have more funding, so teacher do it all. And I tell them, at the very least, just go look up KeyPals, ePals. Look up thinkquest.org. That's one people. If you look up KeyPals and ePals, you can find people to play with that want to, and those may be more people names. But you'll find, you have to get in. You have to get in somewhere and find your social networks, so you get to develop relationships with people online. And avatars, what do we call them?
Second Life.
What do we call our Second Life person?
Avatar.
There's avatars in Second Life who I may or may not know their real name, but I know a lot about them. And I can look up their profile and I can see about them. And so you can profile people
Which may or may
and
not
find
be
people.
true.
You can what?
Which may or may not be true.
Right. But usually when you go into professional environments, they're pretty true. And they point you to other groups.
And they'll share their information.
Right. So, VoiceThread, in here, it's not only 10 minutes left. In here, this is basic VoiceThread. You can sign in or register. You haven't done any of these tools, you always just sign in or register. They'll ask for an email. You can give them your Yahoo or whatever. Usually your Yahoo works better than something like your EDU account. Some places, depending on where you go, they want your EDU account. They want to make sure you're an educator because they filter them. But VoiceThread's one that's anybody can sign up. So, Flash, wonderful. Didn't think to check that. So I won't show them a lot. But when you come in here and you want to play, you can go to Browse and you can check around for different VoiceThreads that are up and be able to see some samples of them. And like anything else that's social, open digital media, there's good stuff and there's not such good stuff. And so that's partly why I'm trying to create heuristic protocols, templates for my learning environment. And think potential on Java, that's right. So with VoiceThread, what it basically looks like, let me check here quick for voicethread.com, which is Java. What you end up having is a storyboard. It looks like a storyboard. You can put up pictures, you can put up movies, and you can annotate them. So you're looking at a picture, but I can allow people to come in and insert comments where they can do an auditory comment with your mic. You can do, if you had a movie, cam on your laptop or an attached webcam, you can give a video response. Try to think more outside of the head and shoulder response, because that's, in my world, that's a no-no to do too much of that. But you could also have you could turn that camera towards a student's reaction or a student's process of designing their little volcanic eruption. You can show something like that. You can also do text response. Good girls. We're going to come up here. Good girls. Look over their shoulders. So you have, here's just the blue screens. When you see something in blue, that's VoiceThread people giving you little tutorials. You can do doodling. In addition to what I just said about how you comment to pictures, you can also comment to videos. What's nice about videos, though, when they have in their doodling example here, how many of you remember Wile E. Coyote? That was their first, their Roadrunner. That was their first doodling. They showed Wile E. Coyote doing one of his things, like stepping off a cliff with an anvil and starting to go down on the, like a tightrope. And it was fun because he would start to go down and the eyes got this big and somebody paused the video. And they were trying to do, like we do with our chocolate example in class, but they were trying to do some really high-level pontification about why that was happening. So someone got in and paused the video, circled the eyes, and started commenting on it. And so it's neat to be able to see, like with a video, it could have been a reaction to, in my case, a student teaching experience. somebody posts something up about their student teaching, someone else says, okay, right here, where this student's reacting this way, I maybe would have tried this, to get shared experiences and shared ideas. So VoiceThreads are very powerful in terms of what kind of storytelling you can make out of it, or how you can use it as an analysis tool and a collaborative research tool. So anyway, I wanted to give you some time to come into voicethread.com and browse around with some of the samples and play around with that. And if you can see my document link, I give you just some digital storytelling samples. All I did there was to go into VoiceThread, there's a search bar on the top, and type in digital storytelling if you want to do it right now. And that way you see some samples, and again, some are good, some are, but you can see some examples of digital storytelling, or at least play around with the tool and get an idea of what are the affordances, right? When I get into VoiceThread, what are my options for how do I reply, what can I post, go into uploading, see what all you can upload. You can upload some documents. How does that look when I upload it? What does that afford me to do? How can I use that in my learning environment? So out of that little part of what I presented at the conference, I want you to remember affordances. When you look at tools, when you look at these new tools, you think, what can I do with it? And I know you probably already do that. If you haven't, we'll start doing it. And think of it in terms of the affordances model, where it's basically just a 2-column table. What does it allow me to do? What are the features? Insert comment on Word. I show that still to some people and things as students. They're like, really? I didn't know you could do that. And then we talk about, so what can we do with that? In class, as fellow learners. And when you're an educator, what could you do with that? How could you design with it? So that's all you're doing, is looking at the affordances and then pedagogical implications. So start thinking that way when you see some of these new tools. And that will allow you to get creative, to build up your passions inside of you and become more of the interactive sea changer, not just one that's bobbing around like a cork, or one that's afraid to jump in the water, but jump in and start thinking affordances model, and you'll be one of those interactive sea changers. Okay. And if you want to come play. We got headsets, so if you want to respond to some of these VoiceThreads that are there, that's why they're there. Feel free to jump in on one that's already established and just add some comments, see what that looks like. And if you want to actually sign up and start using one, you get 3 free VoiceThreads with a free account, which you can play with. So I encourage you to play with that and just keep that affordances model in mind whenever you're seeing and hearing about these new things, even like Facebook, which I remember. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Elwood. Really appreciate it. I would like to introduce Laura Rosales. Laura is the director of the ELITE graduate program, and she's going to say a few words.
I just want to say thank you, Dr. Elwood, for that presentation and sharing that information, and for being our first faculty travel recipient. I would like to present you with a little certificate. It just says Distinguished Presenter, the ELITE Graduate Program is proud to present the certificate to Dr. Susan Elwood for presenting a lecture on Pedagogical Trends for Technology in Education, Site 2010 Conference Reflections at the Summer 2010 ELITE Lecture Series, promoting educational excellence at Texas A&M Corpus Christi. So thank you very much. Sorry.
And I just want to say these people do such an excellent job. I'm very appreciative of having them in the grant, or having their grant on campus.
Thanks for being the first one.
And having them, and having them on campus. So great people to work with, great people.
I just want to say and encourage all of y'all to check out our ELITE website, because we have information on there about the travel program to encourage faculty, staff, researchers, and coming this fall, cohort students that will be in our program to travel to conferences, whether to present or to just be as a participant, and come back and share the information with all of us.
Or to be a cohort student, what's their?
We are in the process right now of putting that together. Julie and Lisa are, and they're going to be putting the criteria and information on there, how to apply to be a participant. All right.
Anybody wants to play with VoiceThread, come on up.
I have a question. It's kind of off topic, but what about older undergraduate students? Because this would be very intimidating to them. Because I've had to explain Excel to them many times, so this might be off-putting if it's put in core curriculum for class for them. They have a really difficult time with it.
Like one thing I just got to different strategies. I use Nike a lot. or just do it. And I tell them, think about kids. What do kids do when you give them a piece of technology? Punch buttons, play, they have the attitude, I can't break it. And I give them a little bit of what I know about adult learning here. I said, you were so ingrained as adults, as just adults, that, okay, I want to know the outline, I want to know where we're going, I want to know what I'm doing, I want to have confidence that I can do it before I touch that machine. And I tell them, we will break that right out of you in this class. You're going to become like a kid where I jump in and I play. So I would throw at them some of these applications like this and model for them. Try to find, I mean, you'll probably know what you're getting into before you get into it, but try to model for them. You can find them. Once you get into some of these applications,
They're really user-friendly.
they're user-friendly, but I don't know, like when you get into Facebook or anything else, you start seeing icons, or just go to web20.net. Go to web20.net. Go to the number 2, web20.net. You go on there and you'll have tabs on the right where you click on different like collaboration or video, there's different themes you can click on. Or you can type something in the search bar. These little applications will pop up. These are all Web 2, most of the time free, or part of it's free, or if you want added services, this is what you pay for subscription per year. So you find something free and you model for them that I have no idea what I'm doing right here, but I'm interested in collaborative tools or note-taking tools. So I'm going to go into my search and then you mouse over them and you see how it works, that they kind of introduce you to them. Eventually you find when you say, I'm just going to click on this one. Do this really quick. I want to see what this one's about. Oh, look, this sounds interesting. I'm going to go to their website, hope they give you a link to it, so it's user-friendly. And, oh, it says sign up to her. You model for them about how I have no idea. I didn't know what this tool was called 2 slides ago. But now look, within 5 minutes, I'm in, I'm producing. You model for them. This is the here and now. This is what we're into right now. You got to get up and run. And it's not intimidating. You just got to have an attitude that I won't break it. I used to tell students, and if you break something, type it. Because you're an adult, I know, short of getting frustrated and grabbing this thing and throwing out the window. But if you just clicking on something, you break something, or that flash player doesn't come up. You know, that's, oops, I should have said that earlier. You know, and that's my course. And so you just give them that confidence that it's, you know, free. It's a free learning environment. And my course students don't know how to read because I'm fast-paced like this. So when we get into playing, it's like just free, just try it out. You know, if they need that confidence, I make sure my hands are behind the back. And I don't touch the computer for them. I'll sit down beside them, I'll start talking to them and just get them to get comfortable. But that's a good example of where to go to get them into that, get comfortable, just click, just play, see what happens. Because they come from the environment. If I had some people up there on a computer 20 years, really, 10, 15 years, I wouldn't have done that. Show everything like that's the first thing. I said, breathe, take it easy, just do what I tell you to do. It's a time investment. A lot of times in my course, because I have people like that that come into my course that know a lot. They're graduates from our program are working through it, and they know a lot of times, in some cases, more than I do. It's like, go find yourself, you know, and then share what you've learned, push yourself. And then I got the one who comes in and says, I haven't touched a career in 20 years. It's okay, just do the middle of what's in here, find yourself. That's part of that social networking. And let them know what this will be in terms of biological. Yeah, that's right. Anyway, doesn't matter if it's male or female dominated, but let them know, because I just showed this fact a day or two ago, that on Facebook, what's the largest growing population? 55 to 65 aged women, years 55 to 65 years old. It's a social networking tool. They like a social interaction with this. Also, another movie I would show people to get them into thinking like expand your brain, expand how we have a responsibility to be contributing authors to the web as older people. They sometimes feel like, oh, I can't keep up with this younger generation. Yeah, but you have wisdom. That younger generation hasn't lived through enough life. I see it when I have those non-traditionals. Perfect example of it. I'll tell them, give me a non-traditional every day. Give me that single working mom who has no time, because if you take the traditional age and stereotypically some traditional age student who comes in with mom and dad footing the bill, they don't appreciate it so much.
Oh, those students, older ones, they work the hardest. Yes. But it takes them twice as long and they're frustrated.
Because they're so hard on themselves.
Yeah.
And so you point out, you have wisdom that the others don't have about life. You have a social responsibility to get in there and share that, and to envision and design something, a blog. Your blog can have great purpose because of your life experiences. And so you encourage them that way. The machine is using us. YouTube it. Go on YouTube and search for the machine is us. And the us is capitalized. And then there's a slash and an ing, lowercase. And it says the machine is using us. You read the title 2 ways. The machine is us or the machine is using us. And it's a really neat video. It's been around for 2 to 3 to still printed now. It was a anthropology professor out of somewhere, who designed this video and did it similar to what you saw there. I think that's these people mocked him, maybe Tim, where you type and it's got music in the background. You got to follow up very carefully when you sing. And he explains how we went from a Web 1 transformation to a Web 2, and puts in those anthropological viewpoints as well. So it's still pertinent today, even though it's 3 or 4 years old. But it's a neat thing to look at and understand how we're going from when we used to just get on the internet and search and find something about whales, to all of a sudden I've got my blog site about whales, and I'm interacting with researchers, or I could interact with researchers, I could interact with someone out there on the west or east coast, who's getting actual archive data, pictures. Thank you. I didn't, yeah, sorry, any other questions? I didn't ask for questions. And if you want to play, I think we're going to play. Thank you.